Okay. Let's see what's going on here. We are live. Let's let it rip. Welcome everybody to Soccer Wise. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, and now officially on Twitter as well. If you are watching live, what's up? Throw your questions in, throw your comments in. We've got a loaded show coming up for you. If you are not, you're listening on the podcast, we love you anyway. Thank you for being here. We are so excited for this show because this was our question mark show. Would Tom return from the bachelor party? Would Tom return with a full enough of sane mind to ever be able to do a show again? Tom, speak to the people.
We're doing all right. We're fine. A lot of Jersey Mikes today, so that was good. Enjoyed that. That's about all I got. Here.
I was told there was Beer Olympics, and obviously
Beer
being an
Olympics.
Olympics aficionado and having a withdrawal right now. What was the gold medal count? What's the overall scores? Who is the Australia going per population on the final standings?
Me and my best man came in second.
Nice.
You know, the way that we did it, we could have just ended it after the schedule ended. We had a commanding lead atop the medal chart after all of the events, all the games. And I figured, we could just do a best out of three in beer pong to see the winner. And didn't win that. And I could have been a dictator and said, actually, it said it already ended. We stopped the count. And so this was just for fun, remember? But no, I was a good man. My brother-in-law and one of my close friends, they won. So let them have that. They've been lording that over me for the last 2 days. So that's been nice.
It's actually probably good you didn't win. That way people were really trying. Because if you won, it would be like at every bar and bar mitzvah, the main person won Coke and Pepsi, and you're like, come on, you never won Coke and Pepsi before. What a coincidence. So I think that actually gives you a little bit more belief on the competitive truth in all of that.
But the thing is, me and my best man, we were used to winning this in college. This wasn't our first rodeo, cowboy.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that the state of Pennsylvania, is that technically where it was?
Yeah, it was
Survived.
in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I'm glad that the state survived as well.
Real quick, it finally was sunny here the morning of leaving because it had been raining for days, but it was still absolutely torrential in Pennsylvania. We're driving up, so we drive from the sun into the rain, and somebody got there before us and was like, "Hey, don't go down the road. It tells you to. There's a tree on the road." And I was like, "I don't know if we're coming from the same direction." And we get in, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I can just go around it." There's an absolute log in the middle of the road. It's pouring down rain. I brought three of my friends. We drove up together. We all got out of the car like a NASCAR pit crew and moved the tree off of the road. So we were leading from the front, just doing some good deeds over in Pennsylvania. So you're welcome if you lived on that road. We moved the tree for you.
Some would say you are a hero.
Yeah, some would say that. I didn't say that, but some would say that.
Especially coming out of this weekend. I think that's that's definitely a big viewpoint on what you're doing. So thank you for that. And thank you from the people of Pennsylvania for that as well. A big weekend for Tom. Did you get itchy fingers on the tweets? Were you responding to sources?
No.
Were you like halfway in?
No, I was joking. Like some sources, like the Calvin Stang's initial report came out on Saturday. Somebody texted me on Monday, was like, "Wow, you really did like stay off of your phone. Like you didn't text or call me. Like, are you I was worried if you were okay." It's like, yeah, man, I was so far the way out. Or like I saw a DM from some, I forget what it was. It was like some really, really minor thing. It was like, "Hey Tom, like, have you heard of this?" And I was like, should I just respond or just leave a flat no as like a deadpan? But I was like, no, that'll open the floodgates for other people to bother me.
I thought it was nice of you to allow other people the chance to cover MLS for a little bit of a weekend. I'm on the Reddit page, which, by the way, is the best way I think to follow MLS. And shout out to Reddit MLS for letting me do an AMA on Friday. You can go back and look at all of those answers and questions and stuff. A lot of the stuff that we do out of our mailbag as well was some of the stuff we answered there. But you're in there and you're like, there's other sources here. It's not just Tom over and over and over again as the buzzer goes off, because the buzzer knows that it really is just Tom in the space. Rainman34 says you're both wearing black in honor of the Stengs deal being dead. Salute and a moment of silence for the Stengs deal, which you just mentioned, which is part of what has been an insane weekend of Charlotte FC news. We're going to dig into all of that on this show. Red Bulls are closing in on a massive deal. some historic transfers out in the Rocky Mountains, both for RSL and the Colorado Rapids. A big sale with a knock-on effect for the LA Galaxy. The Revs make a big signing. A bunch of other big news that you are breaking in the process right now. And of course, Leagues Cup. Tonight is basically the round of 16. There was one game last night. Seattle Sounders, a 4-0 win over Pumas. Of course, the rematch of the CCL final that Seattle won. And then the other 7 matches are on tonight, leading into, I believe, a Friday, Saturday back-to-back of all the rest of the games in the next round. The quarterfinals that's what that would be called. So we'll get you up to speed on all of that and chat about it as well. It was a wild weekend in Leagues Cup play. Some ridiculous games, 4-3 with a red card and 2 penalties in the first half. Down in Miami between Toronto and Miami. Some wild finishes across the country as well. Of course, the San Jose Earthquakes are the best team in the world. But the biggest story of the weekend, Juan has been traded.
Relief.
That is where it all starts. That's the big story. Tom, how does this change the landscape of Major League Soccer forever?
This is actually the one. I got multiple texts about it, and I was deciding on if I was just going to curse at somebody for even asking. I was like, it's not their problem. It's not their fault. They don't know that I'm gone. But yeah, so this was actually the one where it was like, yo, have you heard about anything about this? It was like talking to me like it was like, the Messi signing. I was like, dude, no, I don't know. And no, I'm not doing anything.
It's a big deal. It was
Sure.
the big trade of the weekend. It was the big move. I'm just kidding. But before we dig into this, we have a question. I think it's from Ben Wright. Shout out to the legend Ben Wright about your men's league. I believe you had a playoff game last night. Is that true?
Not a playoff game.
He has a playoff game. You had a game. You showed up. You performed. You won.
We won. I had the game-winning assist. I wouldn't say I was my best, but
Michael Jordan flu game.
Yeah, I guess. It was a tough one. It was a tough one running around.
Okay, let me get my gripe out here right out the gate.
You do know there's a lot. Go.
Everyone can chime in and then tell me what you think. So I had co-ed last night, co-ed game. The team we played didn't have enough players to start. So they brought players from the games before us to fill in for their team. They had 2 players fill in, and they had 1 sub coming off the bench. Running subs, obviously, 44-minute games, whatever it is, 7v7. I said to them, I think it's pretty bold to bring non-rostered player subs and have an extra player subbing off the bench. And they were like, yeah, we didn't know how many subs we'd have. And it's like, cool. But now we're in this moment. Tell someone to go home. Like, if we don't have enough players and we ask people to come, you don't ask extra players to come. And obviously those 2 players had like 3 goals and 1 assist, which is fine. I don't care how good the player is. Am I wrong?
No.
Tell me if I am wrong.
No, you're absolutely not. That's frustrating. That's really frustrating.
So like I don't
particularly when the
up,
players are very good. It's like, oh, you just happen to ask your best friends that you're playing with. Like,
well, it was the guy who scored a hat trick on the field in the game before us, and then a player from the other side, and they obviously dominated. That part also, again, I don't care the quality of the player you bring. You don't get an extra player if you don't have enough players. When we have games, we don't do it. I'll just say we went down 5-0 in this game. We fought back. We lost 5-3. This goalie was immense. It should have been at minimum 5-4, probably 5-5. Absurd game. Let me know if I am wrong or right in the comments right now. Let me know if I'm wrong or right in the Discord. If you are listening via podcast and you are a subscriber, if you're not, go to Patreon, subscribe. You get access to our Discord. We're setting up our next happy hour as well for our MVP subscribers. We've got the depth charts on point already. We are reacting to everything Tom reports. We are reacting to all the breaking news with the salary cap tables and everything, so you can see how it affects your teams. Plus, we've got some exciting stuff in the works coming forward as well, so you can subscribe there and let me know that I'm right. If you want to let me know that I am wrong, I will create a new channel for that I will never check, and we can do that in Discord as well going forward. Now we can dig into the real stories and the real news, and let's start with Charlotte. Tom, what the hell is going on with Charlotte FC?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind 48, 72 hours for Charlotte FC. They had a deal that was pretty much agreed and set for Calvin Stangs from Feyenoord. I'm told that deal is completely off. I broke that news this morning. Dutch newspaper Telegraph got a quote from Calvin Stangs after my report came out, and he said that pretty much confirmed, yeah, like I'm remaining at Feyenoord. Yeah, it just never got over the line. I think you can follow you can use deductive reasoning to follow what happened. If it was deal reported to be done, medical reported to be happening, a couple days later, I'm reporting that the deal fell through. You can read into that how you will, and that's how the Calvin Stings deal is off.
Brutal, because
And,
this looked like it was a like club defining signing in the quality of player. I think one of the things I saw talking to someone who knows the player and a little bit of background was from a pure soccer technique and quality, Champions League level player. Some more question marks on the athleticism, and hence coming to Charlotte and not going to, I don't know, Lyon or Marseille or whatever. But like we looked at his highlights, we looked at his stats, we looked at the way he impacts the game. This was the signing we've been talking about for this team since they've been created, because they've not gone huge on their DPs, and it felt like they had it over the line and they were ready to roll, and then it falls apart, and it falls apart late in the window.
Yes, and again, so like when you even say huge, like I agree, like this was, and maybe this is why the deal was originally like around 8 million. So I don't know, because he had his stats. I think he had like 14 assists last year for Feyenoord. Like this is a top class player. It's really unfortunate for all parties that it's not going to happen. Charlotte are obviously upset, disappointed, and they really like the player, like as a person as well. So it wasn't just no ill will or animosity. I don't think, at least on either side. But Charlotte are in active talks with Newcastle for Miguel Almiron, the former Atlanta United star. They had an initial bid of around 10 million. Newcastle wants around 20, and hearing it from sources around Newcastle to say that like 10 million is nothing, pretty much like that. There's no chance 10 million gets it done. And then hearing it from sources at Charlotte, 20 million is laughable. There's no way that happens. So I would assume that this is less likely to happen. Like I would put it under the 50% mark. But a lot of crazy things happen. I think that it would make sense for all parties, because if Almiron isn't going to be a regular player for Newcastle, it's not like his value is going to go up from here at 30 years old. He turned down a move to Saudi Arabia last year. So I think that part of the sticking point is that I think Saudi clubs agreed like a 30 million pound fee for Almiron. What was it, 8 months ago maybe? So I can understand why Newcastle's like, oh, to then try to turn around and sell him for like 8 million pounds wouldn't be great, but that's what the market dictates. And I don't know who's bidding against Charlotte, so I understand why Charlotte would be kind of holding on to their valuation. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. There's 20 hours left in the window, something like that. Maybe less than that. Can't do math. Something like that. Where it closes at 1 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday night going into Thursday. So we're getting down to the final hours here, so we'll see how this situation unfolds.
You would assume the offers between the Charlotte offer and not selling him, right?
Yes.
And keeping him with like Newcastle saying we like his depth, we like that he can play for us if we need to.
Yeah.
Going forward, I guess at that point, 20 million conversation. Why don't you just go the full Monty and go Vinicius Jr. if you're Charlotte, right? Get
Go
Steve
to a
Smith
billion.
Jr. and TJ Houshmandzadeh on a plane. Get the big sale going in Madrid. Vinny's open to it, right? Like, why waste the money on Almiron at that point?
Yeah, you make a good argument. I can't counter it.
It is, though, to be clear, like when you heard this as the second report then of like, okay, the Stengs deal is off. Now Almiron come. It felt that ridiculous to me of like, this is the biggest sale player in MLS history. This is the big name. And to then do Atlanta to Charlotte felt very like out of left field, odd to hear, especially when Atlanta has all this cap space and DP spots open right now.
Yeah, I like when I first saw that Almiron stuff, I was like, am I still not seeing straight? Like, is this real? I was like, am I reading something correctly off my phone? Because particularly this is before I reported that Stangs fell through. So it's like, does this mean Swiderski's leaving? And nobody was saying it. So it's like talking to people. I was like, there's no, like, Abada can't be bought down. Swiderski can't be bought down.
Right.
Obviously, Calvin Stangs is coming in as a designated player if he were to come in. And obviously that's not happening. So it's like, how would they even get Almiron? How could this be real? Against Stangs falling through would obviously made it make more sense, because I haven't heard anything about Swiderski. That doesn't mean that anything's not imminent. I just haven't heard anything. I would hope that I would have heard by now, because I've asked pretty directly a few times and I haven't gotten anything back. So I don't know. And yeah, so Almiron, that'd be an ambitious signing. Again, it's very tricky with the window about to be closing and the difference in valuations between Charlotte and Newcastle. And yeah, you talk about Atlanta. Let me go on a quick tangent here. It was accepted by everybody, including myself. Like, this was slightly before my time as Tommy Scoops. This was me trying to, find my way in. So that, like, I wasn't. It was everybody. The number that was disseminated was 27 million up front. Almiron to Newcastle's league record. Found out over the last month or two that wasn't true. It was up to 27 million, and apparently some of that value included the sell-on. Like, it was 19 million up front. I don't know how many add-ons hit. What I was told is that the Thiago Mata at 21 million up front was the most upfront money in league history, and I believe that's more than Almiron got to. I mean, if a sell-on happens, that would change the math. Right. But I believe Alphonso Davies is the league record fee right now at 22 million. Thiago Mata is expected to get there with add-ons in the next coming years, but yeah, we've all been duped as a collective MLS community in that with that 27 million number.
It would be a thing though if Charlotte buying Almiron was the thing that pushed him back over that line for Atlanta.
Weak class.
It would be a nice transfer of money there. You could keep it all in house. You don't even have to transfer internationally. You could drive it down yourself.
What in a brown paper bag.
That very much was and still is, by the way, an issue with Major League Soccer, which is the obfuscation on all the deals.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't get there, but I tried. And that's like kind of one of the annoying things about covering this league, but I think for fans watching this league as well is the whole, like, we can have a conversation, everything's a fake number, and then we can make it up and move as we go. And transfers are always somewhat like that. Like, no one knows what segment of time Chelsea is paying out a deal. Like, no one really cares, right? Julian Alvarez is going to Atletico Madrid. No one needs to see the bank records. No one needs to see every month when it gets uploaded and, like, all those types of things. But calling something in that big of a chasm, like the difference there, that's pretty large. And then it goes and affects the, like, Almada deal, which is like, well, we want a record deal. So we all think they need to get 30 million when they only needed to get 21 to accomplish that. Changes the conversation a little bit. Really does. Also, shout out to Darren Eales for getting a better deal for the team that he went to rather than the team he was working for at the time.
I don't know if I call it better deal. It's just the reporting. It was creative reporting on the numbers that were disseminated on that deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Almiron rumor there, do we feel then, I guess I'll say for me, if they don't get anything over the line, they have to keep Swiderski.
Yeah,
I then go to sell Swiderski and not bring in any DP.
I would assume so. And again, just the fact that they pivoted from DP not because they felt pretty strongly about, like, if Swiderski is going to leave, we have to. Our first priority has to be DP9 because, like, they love Patrick Ajimang, but if Patrick Ajimang gets injured, if Ajimang gets injured, they don't have a center forward. So that was part of it too.
It's disrespect.
So the fact that they even pivoted to going to a DP10, I think tells me that they're firmly expecting Karol Swiderski to be here for the rest of the season. And I think that makes sense where we are. And again, I still think that they'll get something over the line. I do know that, like, Almiron's not the only person they have on their list. And obviously they'll do a deal if it makes sense. So I guess that there is a possibility nothing gets done. But they do have, I'm very confident they have more targets behind Almiron. And again, it's just working against the clock here to get something done.
It is nerve-wracking for a Charlotte team that 48 hours ago felt like, oh, wow, this is it. Like, literally what we have said on the back of the Tim Ream deal and with the moves they've made and Abada and the way Ajimang's played and Malanda and all of that, we have said they were 2 moves away from being a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. Stengs felt like that move. Almiron would be that move. That, as you have said, is probably unlikely. And so I think if you're a Charlotte fan, that is a wide up and down, tornado of emotions there over the last few days in that one. Let's jump into the big sales. We talked about the records there with Almiron. 2 clubs on the verge, I think, of setting their records. Let's start in Colorado with your breaking news today.
Yeah, Moise Bombito is going to OGC Nice in France for $7.7 million up front, which is easily a club record fee for the Colorado Rapids. And then there's another $3 million in add-ons that could bring that deal up to $10.7 million, which would be I think even at 7.7, that's the most expensive center back departure in MLS history. And on top of that, they have a significant sell-on clause in this, and they do believe that the move to Nice is a bridge to, like, okay, bang, then he's in the Premier League, or then he's, even moving up the ladder further. Like, this is a kid who has, 34 senior appearances for the Colorado Rapids? It's incredible. It's so cool. What a move from Moise Bombito. I do want to point out that the Colorado Rapids held firm to their valuation. Lyon bid $4 million up front to start with. That was rejected. They said they could go up to 5.5, and Colorado was like, "Cool, our value is like 8 million was essentially what they said." So they said, "Well, that's just slightly under," which is more or less just the ballpark. They're like, "Yeah, 5.5, that's cool." We said 8. Like, we're not going to do the deal, no matter what pressure might come. And they were like, "We believe if you don't do it, somebody else will." And hey, no hard feelings. Like, if you don't value the player at that, that's cool. Like, we can't make you. It's just, this is the number. If you want to do the deal, do the deal. If you don't, then don't.
Yeah.
And they moved on. And then Nice came in. Red Bull Salzburger's in as well. But Nice did get the deal done. But look, it's August 13th. Like, this wasn't like something that came all the way down to the window closing. Like, I think the Colorado Rapids are absolutely vindicated for their position at the beginning of the summer to not take a cut rate deal or what they believe to be a cut rate deal. Like, it still would have been a big fee. Like, I don't want to be dismissive of the number. But the Rapids are like, this is how we view this player, and we think that the bids are going to come, or he's going to keep developing here, and then the bigger bids will come after that. So kudos to the Colorado Rapids for how they handled all this.
Yeah, it has been big for them, and they have learned a ton, right? They've sold Austin Trusty to Arsenal. They've handled the Sam Vines deal over to Belgium originally. They've been in this conversation now a couple times, and like, this is part of the pitch to young players to come there, whether they are trading for them in league, trying to sign the next homegrowns into their academy, especially because they've done pretty well going outside of their region and finding players in California and Arizona, all over, and stuff like that, and then signing that next young player from overseas to say, like, we will get you to the next step. We will work with you, and it can be beneficial for all of us. And now this is massive because you've got a club that doesn't spend, who brought a guy on as a draft pick that now they're going to flip between $7 and $10 million over the next few years. And like, this is where you bring the money in for that next signing. I would assume they're not going to panic on a center back. It's
Correct.
not like they're that thin. Abubakar is there. They obviously have gotten good production this year from Maxu as a DP, and I think he's played almost up to that level for them. So I would assume that is something that comes in the offseason.
So there's a possibility that they'll bring in a defender over the next whenever the window closes here. Sorry, time's a flat circle. Before the window closes, they are kind of actively looking, but as you said, they don't feel in a position like, oh my God, we need to bring in a center back ASAP to fill out the roster. Like, they believe in the depth that they have. If they go for somebody, I'm assuming it's going to be a younger player. I know that they've been looking in South America as well, so we'll see kind of if anything happens there. But as you said, you're absolutely correct, and like, they don't feel pressured to. And I want to bring up one more point. So you said the super draft from Moise Bombito. Credit to the player first and foremost. Credit to the organization for all its development. Talent identification, even starting with Robin Frazier last year in helping bring Moise Bombito along. This wasn't Colorado Rapids' natural draft pick. Colorado Rapids acquired this selection and Ralph Priso in the trade for Mark Anthony Kay. They traded away Mark Anthony Kay. They got $1 million in GAM, Ralph Priso, and a first round pick that turned into Moise Bombito. So that Toronto FC trade is not looking great.
You know what else doesn't look great? Charlotte FC took an international center back with their number one pick in that tournament, Hamde Diop, who is now on loan. I don't know, pick your Balkan country.
Kukureki.
And Shaq Mohammed as well for Orlando. Both of those teams, they could use Moise Bombito. They could have used him for the last year plus, and they could use the $7.5 to $10 million that they sold him for. So shout out to the Colorado Rapids. Shout out mainly to Moise Bombito. This, by the way, is why international soccer matters. Like this, a lot of this move is coming from his performance for Canada, and it's been a huge opportunity for him, and it will continue to be. But this is why those platforms are special still for these players. How much does UNH get? How much do the Wildcats get on the back of this?
Maybe Bombito will pay for some textbooks or something. Or maybe the Rapids will. Maybe somebody will pay for some textbooks.
They're going to contend in the America East again this year. They've got to be able to flip some of that money on the Bombito deal. Do the right thing, Colorado.
No conference realignment over there?
No, honestly, I had to Google to see what conference they were in. So fingers crossed they're still in the America East going forward. I'm not a huge expert on that one. The Rapids play tonight against Toluca in the next round of the Leagues Cup.
It'll be such a fun game.
This has been a good run for them. Toluca puts up 2 goals, wins in a shootout against Houston. For the Rapids, they looked really good once again against FC Juarez. The high pressing's creating chances. Rafa Navarro, it's both for himself and setting up teammates. So his pressing has been good. His ideas of like when to release for his teammates in that final third area are really good right now. And Georgia Mihailovic shaving the head post the massacre in Morocco in France to say, new me, new day, new me, new haircut, new him. Scores on a penalty kick. They went up 3-1. They should have seen it out at 3-1. They win 3-2. Francisco Calvo doing Calvo things, which is always super fun. But like, this is a chance for Colorado to make a little bit of a run in this tournament. We have talked a lot about like who needs Leagues Cup and who has the biggest chance with it and all those things. At this point, it's undoubtedly San Jose. But the Colorado Rapids, I think, are another one that can look and say that they can make a deep run and make a difference.
I totally agree, and this has been an awesome run for them. Again, this game against Toluca is going to be a lot of fun because this Toluca team is a lot of fun. Obviously, haven't caught up on a ton of MLS from the weekend. One of the highlights I saw was Rafa Navarro taking the ball from a defender and setting up a goal that started the comeback that the game they eventually won. And I was like alarmed how casual that defender. I was like, that was. And then they showed his close up, and I was Francisco Calvo, and I was like, that all makes sense now. I forgot he's back that he's in League MX now.
And of course that was him. One of the great comforts in life is Francisco Calvo being borderline Cannavaro for Costa Rica and by far the worst player on the field for his club team every single year. He knows his game. He knows what he does. And he's consistent, which I think is appreciated for all people involved, especially for Rapids fans who are the ones going against him in a game like this. As you said, that Toluca game is going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be open. It's going to be super aggressive. Let's stay in the Rocky Mountains. Let's go to RSL now, who are trying to break my heart here at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, Rennes in France has agreed a deal to sign Colombian winger Andres Gomez from Real Salt Lake for an initial fee of $11 million with another $2 million in add-ons. In addition to that, RSL, look, they didn't want to lose Andres Gomez this summer, but it came to a point where like we just can't keep hold of him, and they're not going to stand in his way against his will kind of thing. Like they're not thrilled to be losing, who's been pretty much their second best player this season, definitely their second best attacker, and that's not part of the plan. It's not what they wanted, but like, look, he's been so incredible this season. This move was kind of inevitable. They got a really good fee. He's going to a really good landing spot. I think he's going to do really well in France. And Real Salt Lake are finalizing a deal to sign a winger, Dominic Marchuk. I've only read this name, so I haven't heard it pronounced. But so they are bringing in again, a replacement would be too much pressure on the new signing for how good Andres Gomez has been, but at least adding another option for Pablo Mastroeni in attack. So now they have Diogo Goncalves, who came in this window, Lachlan Brook, who came in this window, Benji Michel, who came in this window, and now the new Polish signing with Andres Gomez leaving.
Do you look at this and say this was the plan, Goncalves getting done, and then Gomez is available, or is this someone came in with an unexpected deal for Gomez earlier than they thought?
Yeah, I mean, their perfect world would have been if something happened in the winter or waited until the winter.
Finish the season.
Again, before the window, when talking to sources, it was we're really intent on holding on to Gomez and Luna. We want to add a DP, go for it this year. And then, look, we know that Gomez and Luna aren't going to be here forever. Particularly Gomez, because he's advanced to the point that he has this season, and he has the physical profile that makes more sense for a lot of these teams in Europe. Just because Diego Luna is just a different kind of player, and I think he's going to have plenty of success in Europe. But it was teams the guy with insane pace and can strike the hell out of the ball and can beat players one-on-one. That makes more. We've seen that a whole lot more in Europe. So the idea was we can hold on to them all, have this run, and then again, he kept on performing, and then the interest turned into bids, and they were getting a lot of calls on the player. So they kind of realized as the window was getting closed, we're not going to keep him.
Best friend of the show. This is why we exist, just to talk about how great Andres Gomez is. We made up drafts just so we could fight over the first pick so we could take Andres Gomez. Oh, man, heartbroken. Goss theorem in effect, though. Year one, tough, figured it out, slow. And year two, he was elite in MLS. I will say
he was.
Diego Luna is good enough. Chicho Arango, now that he seems to be fully back, is good enough. You talked about it last week. Added around the margins as well. Benji Michel can play across those front three or four. Mm-hmm. It can slide Arango around as you need to, or Luna. It is a half step back. There's no way Goncalves picks up and starts at the level that Gomez is leaving. They could probably get close by playoff time to being as competitive as they are now against everyone. Although the West continues to get better with Olivier Giroud on the verge of making his debut, we think, tonight in Leagues
Yep.
Cup play. It's a little bit frustrating. It's not overly frustrating for me because I think this with RSL, this is long-term build, new ownership groups trying to like establish who they are as a club going forward. So I think if you're an RSL fan overall, you have to be excited, but it's tough to see a player like this leave in this moment in a season like this for a club that hasn't had this over the last few years.
Yeah, for sure, bittersweet. And like again, if you want to look at it on the pessimistic side, it's like, yeah, like he played his way into this. So it's like, well, should we be rooting for our players to play at their A plus potential? Because once they hit that, immediately they're gone, and somebody else gets his best years or his best moments. But like, it's the nature of the game. Chalk this one up to the game, man. Like it's with the our primary window, MLS that is the winter. Like we're mid-season while Europe is about to start their season. I don't think Rennes is bidding 11 million plus 2 million for Andres Gomez in January. Not many teams are. So for the player, for his camp, for his hey, like when they signed him, it was you're gonna come here, you're gonna play well, develop, good life, good team, learn all this, and then we're gonna help get you ready to go to Europe. So then it's like when a really acceptable bid comes in for a player that move that the player wants for something that makes sense for everybody, to be like, nah, not yet. It's like I don't think that you can in one mouth be bringing players in saying this is what we're going to do. We're going to help you get to Europe. You should come here. That's why. And then when the bid comes, like, oh, it's not really perfect for us right now. So
Yeah.
I completely understand why fans would be upset or not thrilled, I think would be the better way to put it. Because I think we're not thrilled. We loved watching him week in, week out. But it's just kind of the nature of the game right now. And, you know, it's a difficulty. It sucks. You look at Miami and they're getting to keep Diego Gomez for the rest of the season. That would have been cool. But like every deal is different, and that is the exception to the norm. The norm is the moves happening in the summer.
And this is a deal that sets this club up for a while, which is like you can work off this money plus the money you plan to invest anyway, plus the Fidel Barajas money. What we think you could work off that for a while and be super competitive in Major League Soccer because you have most likely a guy in Justin Glad and Chicho Arango who are going to be there throughout all of this. So you have a spine that you're operating off. A lot of options in central midfield there as well. But it's tough to see in a moment like this when this team looks really, really good. Let's talk about another big signing. I'm going to say Red Bulls. Am I allowed to say the New York Red Bulls are about to make a big signing for an adult soccer player?
Yeah, Carballo, a Uruguay international center mid with 7 or 8 caps. He wasn't part of the Copa America squad, but he has played in World Cup qualifiers. Felipe Carballo from Gremio. I believe the deal is going to be a loan initially with a purchase option. My understanding, and this is fluid in terms of roster designation and everything, my understanding as of right now is that he's going to be a DP for the rest of this season. And then, again, same thing like what the proposed Guillemin deal. DP now, maybe could be TAM in the future. And again, if it's loaned with a purchase option, we'll see how all of that kind of comes together. But yeah, New York Red Bulls are going for or investing in a in-prime central midfielder to add to this group.
That is wild. Like, that's the whole dream for Red Bull fans. It's, like, hard to put your finger on it in terms of, like, oh, normally with Red Bulls, you're like, okay, other shoe drops, like, how do I take this with a grain of salt? How do I explain this? This is the replacement for Amaya. They've been competitive without him anyway. We talked about a lot of it with Guillemin. There are similar numbers here of, like, progressing the ball in the dribble, being able to play north to south in ways that are in the Red Bull style, but doing it at a quality level that's just a little bit higher than what you have and an experience level. And now you go back to the Guillemin conversation of like, okay, Lewis Morgan, how much more dangerous can he be? And Emil Forsberg with less responsibility and like Peter Stroud, if he comes back now can be in a rotation with Edelman. And there's not so much required on those young players to carry this team down the stretch. It is massive for Red Bulls to make a move like this, to attempt to make a move like this. And it's the right time to do it. Like we said, like they are in a potential win now mode if they want to be with Forsberg at his age on the signing that they've made. And so to go for a 27-year-old center mid out of originally Nacional, now Gremio, 5 starts over the course of this season, is not a full-time starter there, but is around that conversation, should be a huge add for this club going forward. And I think a lot of people are really excited about this one. The Revs also making a central midfield addition, bringing in a 24-year-old in Al-Hassan Yusuf from Royal Antwerp. We have some conflicting conversation around this. Thomas Chancalay was put on the season-ending injury list. he was a designated player. Youssef is not a designated player, but it says that they are using some of the SEI space that they got to bring him in. So it seems like both the international slot that Shankly was filling, Youssef will fill, and potentially some of the salary space that a DP holds on your roster can now be reallocated to Youssef. This is a move that Revs have been waiting for forever. A legitimate, can cover ground, can play both ways central midfielder to take the pressure off Polster. Harks has been good, but okay, can you not have to rely on Harks every single game, day in and day out?
Yeah, I think to your point, like, this team has been at its best, like, when Polster, like, his best season when they were winning Sports Shield, like, with Carlos Hill, you don't need a ton around him to make that successful. That profile is the easiest one to build around. Like, a star number 10, and like, a lot of star number 10s don't work a ton off the ball, and that's okay. The trade-offs are great because of how elite they are attacking. Carlos Hill isn't like that. Carlos Hill works really hard. He covers ground. So when you have the kind of foundation behind him, it's the best roster build. It's everything that can make a team go from like bad to average immediately, or average to really good immediately. Like, it's kind of that one more piece to just give the platform to Carlos Hill to go forward, because the way that Carlos Hill can be a heliocentric attack, he can create for so many other players, make everything easier. You want him to just go ahead and go focus on that. Go find the game wherever you want, and we have the structure behind you to make everything work. So yeah, I really like the signing for the New England Revolution. They do have plenty of like bodies in central midfield. As somebody who still believes a ton in Noah Buck, I do hope that there's a move to come for Noah Buck before the end of the transfer window, because he needs to play. And I don't think he's going to find that playing. I think he's already not playing so much under Caleb Porter. And now with Tam, or like maybe somebody who's placeholding a DP spot, like a signing like this guy's coming in to play every game, right? Like, you don't need to be an insider to figure that out. So as for Noah Buck, I hope that another move comes for him. But again, just for the New England Revolution and the 2024 season, this is hopefully something that they can try to claw back to the playoff line with. And this is something that, while it'll help them this year, it's not like a rental. It's not like a short-term thing. It's not something that, okay, we're going to need to get rid of somebody later to make this happen. Like when Chancalay comes back from an injury, we're going to have an issue. This was like last year when Chancalay was signed. It was like, well, if they pick up his purchase option, he's going to be DP. So Gustavo Bell has to leave. And that's kind of how that one worked out. This one, I think you can make it work the same way like Cincy did with their kind of center back maneuverings. If they come back next year, Miazga and Robinson, everybody's here, it can still work. Same thing here for New England for me.
If this was a league that I was running, I would tell New England that they just have to loan Buck to Minnesota for the rest of the year. He gets the play, Minnesota gets the player. There's zero chance New England and Minnesota ever meet in a meaningful game, and like, it's okay. And then we figure it out in the offseason. I would be shocked if the Revs loaned Buck inside of Major League Soccer at this point. You'd assume if you're going to loan him, you try and send him to Europe to give him that experience. Yeah. If not, then you probably keep him on your roster for the rest of the year and move on from there. But good news for the Revs, they continue to do work in this window. We talked about it over the course of last 2 weeks, because they've made a ton of moves that they continue to try and push things forward, as does Montreal, which we did our show at the end of last week. And we said, I'm pretty sure we said in it, the only thing Canadian teams can do left to bring players in is to move between Canadian clubs.
No, so but that's not even true. That's not like, I was asking that like, so Friday morning. So it got done before the deadline the night before. Yeah. Because I was like, was Goss right? And they're like, no.
Oh, baby.
So the deal got done legally. Shaquille Marshall-Ready from Toronto and Montreal. It's a super interesting one. Gosh, I'm going to let you kick off your thoughts on this, because I think you could sway me one way. I can see it from both sides, and I feel positive-ish on both sides. Like it more for Montreal, but Goss, you go first.
The big picture conversation is different than the specific move. The big picture conversation for Toronto is depressing, which is their inability to maximize their own academy players and maximize the talent in the GTA at its best. We're talking already in this show about multiple Canadian internationals who never touched the TFC Academy in Toronto. They have started to fix some of that and gotten better quality players to come in. There is still this acknowledgement. This is the same move that happened with Jaden Nelson, which is like the sell-on percentage we get from this player to go to another team and build up their value and get sold is probably larger than what we can generate for them. That's fine if you're winning trophies. That's not okay if you're mid to low table consistently year after year. If you say, oh, if you're Columbus and you say Taha Bruin can't develop to the player he wants to be because we're not going to play him enough because we have international starters throughout the team and we are playing in 3 finals this year, that's okay. But the fact that Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy can't develop at that club, but also that club's not competitive, is really, really depressing. I think that's the reaction I got from Toronto fans. That's off the back of, like, with all of the rumors we heard over the last 18 months, Toronto could have just gotten more for a sale overseas when Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy tried to make a move last year. And then Toronto said, no, we think we can build up his value. We think he's worth more and we can keep him here. Great. But they are incapable of doing that. So that's the big picture thought. The small picture thought is he doesn't start for this team. He will start for Montreal. You will get a sell on. That is all better. And for Montreal, this is like the dream move. They've got nowhere to go. Yeah. They don't have a robust enough academy themselves to have a player like Shaquille to bring in. So they went out and made a move. And this is what they've done. They have in MLS assets that they're willing to move to bring in players like this to try and make overseas, acquire players that they can sell overseas down the road. And like, this is straight in the handbook of what Montreal wants to do.
Yeah, I'm going to start there because I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from this trade is we talked about the Caden Clark deal, and I said, I like the mechanism of, hey, this is a talented young player or somebody who had talent, potential, whatever. We think we can realize it here. And when we were talking about Caden Clark, I was like, I don't know what the ceiling is here, but I like the idea of low risk, high reward. If it works out, if it doesn't, it doesn't. Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy has a higher talent, a higher ceiling, and less baggage, I think, that comes from
and more time.
Caden Clark. I said, yes, that more time was a better way to put it. Thank you. And so Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy, I love this move. I love it for all parties. For the player in Montreal, in that he's going to play every game for Montreal. They didn't trade for him for that, and that was part of it. I was told that when Montreal approached Toronto about a potential deal for Marshall-Ruddy, Toronto were open with Marshall-Ruddy. Like, what do you think about this, right? Like, the player wanted the move because they could guarantee you're going to play every game. And for Toronto, they have Bernadeschi, they have Larea, they have some other options, and it just hasn't quite worked out in Toronto. And Marshall-Ruddy said that, he'd want the move. So I do appreciate that club continuing to rebuild their culture. Sorry, I think that they're well on their way for that, of being interactive with their players, keeping them in the loop, being honest, being transparent. And I think that's an important part. And it's just Montreal can give him a lot more minutes, a lot better chance to reach this potential. I absolutely love it for Montreal. I can't say it enough. Again, immediately on the back of them saying, you're going to start every game, we promise, they traded their starting right wing back. Like, how quickly can they just be true to their word on, don't worry, you're going to start every game. So I think this is really good. Toronto, maybe they pay off in the long term with that sell-on clause. If there's a team that has shown that they've done this, weirdly it's Montreal, in taking players from around MLS, giving them playing time, giving them the platforms to succeed and moving them on. So I don't know, Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy, I think is one of the most talented players, raw talented players in this roster now. And I absolutely love this move from Montreal.
I'm just going to go back in on this for a second.
Okay.
In the Copa America semifinal, Canada started 4 players from the Toronto area. None of them played for the TFC Academy. I'm pretty sure the most successful from Academy into the first team professional career is Daniel Henry. Like, this is ridiculous because this is not just like, oh, it's a pretty good market or this is Canada. You look at the World Cup players on Canada's roster on the men's side from the GTA, and you could be talking about one of the great soccer cities in the world, for sure in North America and for sure in Major League Soccer. I think that stuff's really frustrating. I think you're right in like where they are now. The people in charge, they had to get some money to help that roster. Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy was not going to be a starter. Of course, Bernadeschi goes down with an injury about 48 hours after this trade happens. But they've brought in Henry Wingo, who can fill a spot for them. They can play Richie Larea in a few different spots. They have Petretta. Yeah. Like, that's not life and death for them at this point. But it's really tough to continue to have this conversation about Toronto. And we talk about, like, some of the issues for CF Montreal, but at least Ismael Kone got into their team at some point. Like, at least the guy in their city. Now, Moise Mambito did not. I don't know if you saw this. he gave a quote to Jordan Angeli. Shout out Jordan Angeli, who will be on tomorrow to talk NWSL on the Rapid Show, talking about he was a staff member in the stadium at Montreal when Nancy was coach, and how he was so excited to play in the All-Star game for him because he used to sit in the stands helping with stadium ops and watch Nancy's team.
Wow.
How he never played for a Montreal CF Montreal Academy team is out of, like, I can't even believe this. But at least they've had some players come through, and at least they pushed some players on. At least they got Kone to sign a contract when it looked like he was going to go to Belgium. That has not been the case for Toronto. They've got more really exciting prospects. They've got a center back that I think is one of the best in the pool in MLS Next. Hopefully those pieces come through and they figure it out. But this was a wild trade. And then Juan goes down to Dallas. The one thing I'll say about that is that probably means Giovanni Jesus is not going to play this year. He was a big signing for them a year ago, and he will now spend, most likely it looks like 16 months on the sideline for that team, which is part of the frustrations, I think, for what they've had over the last few years with the moves they've made. I think that's finally most of it. SKC has signed another random free agent center back. This time his name is Joaquin Fernandez. I'm sure he will be better than the 13 other ones that they have signed. He cannot be worse after a 4-0 loss to Columbus on the weekend for them as SKC gets knocked out of Leagues Cup. Columbus facing off against Inter Miami tonight. Yeah, that one's a little bit tasty. And we'll talk about that one more in a moment. Before we get there, two pieces of news. One, Julian Araujo has been sold, it sounds like, from Barcelona to Bournemouth for a massive number, and one that could affect
$11 million.
the Galaxy.
Yeah, so that deal's done. It was announced today. Julian Araujo has signed for Bournemouth, and the LA Galaxy had a sell-on clause as part of their initial deal to move Araujo to Barcelona. That initial fee was $4 million, and now they're going to get a couple million on top of that. Whether the fee, if it's 10%. It's no less than 10%. I can say that for sure. I don't know what the exact number is, but they'll get some chunk of change for Julian Araujo.
I'm assuming it was a good day for the Galaxy front office to wake up and be like, we just got $3 million. What do you guys want to do with it?
And they're watching while Ramon Sosa, who was kind of their first big DP target that got reported, and I was kind of reporting on that saga from Talleres. I thought that he signed for Nottingham Forest like 2 weeks ago, but that deal's gone kind of back and forth, which just reminded me of the LA Galaxy having to try to go back and forth, and it was extraordinarily difficult, and obviously that deal never got done, and now just watching Nottingham try to do it as well, it's brought up PTSD.
And they just got stuck with Painstill and Peck, who are two of the best DP signings in the league. They got smoked by Seattle on the weekend. It was everything you worry about with the Galaxy. It was 2 set-piece goals within the first 15 minutes. Then they had 80% possession for the rest of the half, and they were down 3-0. There are still question marks. There is a reason I don't think this Galaxy team is an MLS Cup contender, and yet I wouldn't be shocked if they stayed in the Supporter Shield race at the same time. It is worrying to see the one other knockout competition you can test yourself in go the way that people sort of expect it in that matchup against Seattle, and that's worrying, I think, for Galaxy fans. That should be worrying for this Galaxy team. It isn't all fixable this year. They are stuck, it feels like, at this point with the contracts they're on in trying to improve that back line. Jalen Neal's young, Yoshida's old, so they're kind of stuck in the middle. And we talked about the goalkeeper situation, I believe, last week. And John McCarthy just doesn't dominate the box. And that's not really his job at times, but it's what you need with the back line that they have.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Yeah, they've got some holes, but they're still one of my most fun teams to watch.
Yes.
They're only they get to add Royce at some point. That'll be pretty cool. So, yeah, the LA Galaxy have their holes, but you can kind of poke holes in some of these teams. It's not like Inter Miami can defend very well.
Nope.
LAFC, I think they had their issues early in the season. They've gotten better defensively. Obviously, they're adding Giroud, and that'll only be positive for them. So, it's the dichotomy of both an arms race, because a lot of these teams have gotten better, and watching Real Salt Lake try to push, the Galaxy bring in players, Miami bring in the center back, all this stuff that comes from the summer transfer window, but then also being well, no team is perfect because it's MLS. And how different is LAFC from Real Salt Lake, from Cincinnati, from Columbus, whatever, right? These top 6 to 8 teams, it's going to be, I think, so much fun down the stretch, both in the Shield race, unless Miami pulls away, and then obviously the playoffs.
Before we fully dig into Leagues Cup, let me ask you this question from Luke Hamilton in the YouTube chat. He says, huge fan of the show. Thank you. Founding ticket holder, season ticket holder for Atlanta United any positive news on the horizon for Atlanta, or will we be dunking on this team until March?
Yeah, they're still working to try to get a designated player over the line before the window closes. Obviously, time is running out. They've been linked with Roma center forward Shmurdov. Shmurnadov. I'm sorry, that's another name.
Bobby Shmurda, baby.
And it's what I was told is it is not imminent. It was downplayed to me. They didn't flat out say that there was nothing there, but like they're like, nothing's about to be done. So I don't even know if he's their top target that they're working on, because I know that this player in particular, intermediaries have tried to offload him to MLS for like the last year. Like, this isn't the first time I've heard his name, which probably should have learned how to pronounce it by then. But when the way it was being described to me then is like, no, I don't think an MLS team's gonna jump on this. So we'll kind of see what happens with Atlanta. Again, they are trying. That doesn't mean that they definitely will or they definitely won't. I definitely understand the frustration as this team is kind of going backwards over the last few months when we all thought that this was going to be the year that they took the big step forward. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen, but it's fluid. Keep your tweet notifications on, and we'll see what comes in.
I'm pretty sure he scored a penalty against Spain to equalize in the group stage of the Olympics. And it was one of those like absurd moments where like half the Uzbek team was bent over on the ground with their face down on the ground before he struck it, like just praying for him to score it. And it was like, and then the fans went nuts, and it was like one of those wild. I mean, that was at the time when we thought you could wait 2 hours after an Olympic game to come back on the field and finish the game and give goals away. So we were in it at that point about 2.5 weeks ago, when I was a whole different person pre-Olympics, when I had a different personality at that point as well. Let's dig into the Leagues Cup. Seattle got the 4-0 win over Pumas yesterday. Obed Vargas dominant in that matchup. He continues to get better. When he's healthy, they're at their best. And then you come off the early start and the big victory and the goal scoring against the Galaxy, and you followed up with 4 goals in this one. The big one that everyone will highlight is the Jordan Morris goal, in which he takes it off his chest and then volleys it with his left foot. I love that goal, not just because of the left foot finish, but he's the one who challenges at the near post on the initial throw in. And like a true striker, he then floats with the game. And he slowly continues to be an option and floats inside, where one of the things you see from attacking players who aren't true strikers, and one I think we've seen from Morris in the past, is like, oh, I'll hang off the back shoulder because either I can crash late or I'm technically open here. And this was like a true striker's goal where he constantly reset himself in between the center backs and as an option for the ball. And Rusnak steps forward and heads it off his chest. And then the finish is elite and fantastic. But that was big. And the performance from Paul Rothrock was as well. They are getting 1v1 danger down one of the wings. That's not a thing we've said about Seattle over the last 2 years. It's why they brought in Pedro de la Vega, and it's a huge part of why they've been successful over the last week or two.
Yeah, it like taking a step back, like Jordan Morris, Obed, Rothrock, the Roldans, like all these like either literal homegrowns or essentially homegrowns, right? Like Christian Roldan was at the University of Washington. It's really cool to see how organic this has been. It's how organic this has been. And again, like as you said with Rothrock, that was what I was going to bring up, is that like they spent $7 million or whatever it was on Pedro de la Vega, and like he's a super exciting player. He just hasn't been able to be fit all season. And that was like, we desperately need somebody who can eliminate defenders one-on-one in the wing. And then Rothrock comes in, and the dude's a walking highlight reel. That's been so much fun to watch. This is not something that has been normal for the Seattle Sounders. Like, Jordan Morris was an elite prospect at the time. Like, that was obviously he was breaking into the team. Like, Brian Schmetzer has done a ton of great things, trophies, everything. Like, one of his strengths was not developing and giving chances to young players. You're seeing that. Obed, Rothrock, Baker Whiting even last year was breaking into the team. You kind of go on down to Atencio. Like there are a bunch more to name that this is not something that was in Brian Schmetzer's game 2 years ago, right? Like, so I think that that's impressive as well. You talk about the development with Jordan Morris, not just in his convictions and finishing and technique, but his natural center forward IQ. I think that was the best takeaway to have on this, is that like, whoa, like this isn't something we've seen from him. Like when he's played up top, he can still score goals, but sometimes he can drift in and out of the game or play like he's a winger playing centrally. So I think all this has been really, really encouraging for this team and very sustainable, that for this end of the season run, for this Leagues Cup run, for anything else that comes for the rest of the season. When, what was it, May? it was like, oh, maybe they just aren't very good. Maybe this was 1 year too late, and this is over, and they need to turn the page. And here they are right now, getting nothing from De La Vega. They did not add another DP this summer, and just the improvement from within has been really impressive.
Unfortunately, or fortunately for them, it is just Leagues Cup, so they still need to go back into the league and get some performances. But it is another area of proof, which is there is not a knockout match Seattle will ever play where most of us won't go, yeah, I could see them. I could see them get a win
right?
here. Like this goes to, so you get into this game and it's like, oh, Yaimar's not going to lose battles. And whether it's Stephen Fry or Andrew Thomas at this point, coming off the back of Steph Cleveland's play, they're always strong in goals. João Paulo available, Rusnak available. Like they're always going to be hard to beat. And then you get some of that winning quality. And obviously it feels much better to play from a lead than to play from behind. So a big performance for Seattle. They move on to the quarterfinals. So they're the only team in so far. They will face off against the winners of LAFC against the San Jose Earthquakes, which I don't even have to say. Like, I don't need to play with this. San Jose's got this. San Jose are the best team in North America. They put 5 on Necaxa. It was electric from the start. You've got world-class goal-scoring abilities in Jackson Ewell coming out of midfield, curling shots by keepers. Jeremy Abobasi scores from every part of the field. Amal Pellegrino, who has that little bit of effervescence, the bubble of the Pellegrino. And then you bring in Hernan Lopez as well, just the human victory cigar to seal the whole thing off the top. They put 4 in like 35 minutes to blow Necaxa off the field. I guess the question is this. Can LAFC hold it to a 5-goal deficit, or have they already lost?
On Olivier Giroud's debut night, he is available to play. They don't announce that there's no way he's just sitting on the bench and not getting in the game. So I can't wait for it. Let's see if the Quakes spoil the party. This should be a fun one. These two teams, there's always goals, man. It's always end-to-end. It's good stuff. I can't wait.
I cannot wait.
Hey, I told you about Necaxa San Jose. I was excited for that game. I told you that.
You did. And I assume you were as locked in as you said you would be?
Super, like, all right, can we just pour one out for those Necaxa kids? Those were, I think, elite level kids in this tournament. I loved those. And now we won't get to see them again because San Jose eliminated them.
Also, I think one of the things that's tough to conceptualize is with this San Jose attack, after Giroud calls Griezmann tomorrow and is like, man, you got to go to San Jose. They play. Like, this team balls. Where does he fit in? Because they've already had to move Benji Kikanovic to right back. So if Griezmann's willing to play left back, I think there's an opening there. If not, I don't know that there's room left in this San Jose team. But we can just say, like, this is the story we talk about, which is this would be San Jose's season. If they make a semifinal here, even, like, obviously winning a trophy would save their season and be insane and all that stuff, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If they made a semifinal against Club America, that would be played somewhere in California. I don't totally understand hosting, but at some point I know that it would be in California. That's huge. And, like, that's massive. You get some confidence. Abobasi looked so different in this game. Hernan Lopez is a match winner for real. I don't know. There's some fun stuff happening. We will see if Giroud and LAFC can handle all that pressure in this one. Let's talk about Columbus, Miami, because, like, this is the treat. This is everything. You talked about the defending and the issues. David Martinez picks up a red card for another foul from behind for a Miami defender in a game that they were leading 3-1 in against Toronto. Just understand the moment. Give up the goal. You don't need to make the tackle from behind. And then Avilas is over yelling like, "No, I'm back in the play." And it's like, Thomas Avilas, you've made your own mistakes. Don't even get involved in this conversation.
He's like, "No, I know this foul. I've done I was actually gonna catch up. If there's anybody an expert on it, it's me."
Yeah. It was a red card on me 2 months ago, but it's not a red card in this
well,
one.
That's because I didn't have somebody like me who was going to come up and catch him. I wouldn't have fouled him.
Exactly. And then they get the, like, weird double jeopardy now in reverse, which is, like, it's not a PK, so it is a red card, which you'd prefer it would have been a PK. They still won 4-3. Redondo with a crazy goal to help stretch the lead and keep it alive. I assume Sergio Busquets will play center back in this game. So you've got Busquets and Avilas playing center back behind probably Yannick Bright, and maybe they bring David Ruiz into the game against Columbus, the best attack. Like, this game will probably be... I will set the line at 8.5 goals for the two teams combined. Do you think it goes over or under?
Life's too short to bet the under. Are you kidding me?
Love that. Tom coming off a big weekend with the squad, talking lines. This is the treat. Like is this an Eastern Conference Finals preview?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Supporter Shield race right now. This game's going to be amazing. This game's going to be really, really special. For this one, Tigres plays NYCFC at Red Bull Arena because, of course, that is a big game going on later tonight. In this one, Mazatlan faces off against Cruz Azul. I think Cruz Azul have scored 1 goal so far in this competition, and they are into the next round. Mazatlan beat a DC team that played down a man for over an hour after Jared Stroud's red card. In that one, Club America hosts St. Louis in a rematch of St. Louis's 4-0 loss last year. That one's in Carson, California, so they'll be hoping that's different. Simon Betcher looks really good right now. He fits this team really well. The way he plays center forward fits this team, the attacking ads as well. Hopefully we see some players come back healthy on the back line. I don't think the defenders that they've had so far in this competition are capable of matching this Club America team. And then the last big one for tonight, FC Cincinnati Philly. I will never not tune in for an FC Cincinnati Philly game. Like, these games are always bonkers. Jim versus Pat, and Philly's got a little bit of juice right now, Tom, and this feels like a big one for them.
Yeah, a lot of momentum, and this is what kind of the Leagues Cup can do in terms of, doesn't matter how much if we've struggled, it doesn't matter if we're underperforming, overperforming, whatever. Like, hey, wipe the slates clean, let's play a knockout competition, and let's get some momentum. Let's try to win a trophy. Let's try to qualify for the Champions Cup, because the Philadelphia Union, like, if they don't win a trophy, they're not going to qualify for the Champions Cup, and that's a goal for this team, to play in that competition as much as possible. So these are big games. It's super fun when we get down to this stage of the Leagues Cup for me. Again, all these matchups are really good. Like, all of them. There are, like, again, you're talking about the league leading San Jose Earthquakes. That's what you want to see in big time knockout games. But jokes aside, like, these are all going to be big games. These are all, every team should be going full tilt desperately to push on through. Like, I understand the opening games. Hey, maybe you play your second choice goalkeeper, or maybe you rotate in a player who hasn't played much, give other players a chance. But, like, these are knockout round games. These are first choice, little test runs for the playoffs, little test runs for knockout round games. And as you say, Cincy Philly, always excited for that. Tigres NYCFC at Red Bull Arena. That was the last game before COVID, going back to 2020. Game. Yeah, I was there as well.
I probably should not have been.
No, yeah, I remember, like, people just giving fist bumps and stuff, because that was, like, I think that was the night after, the night of when Liverpool played Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, and Klopp was saying to the fans, like, stop hugging people and giving high five. Like, don't you know that there's a global pandemic?
Yeah.
And everything's shut down. So anytime I see Tigres NYCFC at Red Bull Arena, something I didn't think I'd say again, anytime you see that, that's going to bring you back to 2020.
Yeah, for sure, which is exactly where we want to go. Pat Noonan had an interesting quote coming out of the last Cincinnati game and said, like, we're actually using this to get some players some game minutes because we are not as fit as we would like for some of the players deeper down the roster who are not playing a ton. And they felt like late game, they didn't have energy, whether it's guys starting or I think the subs, to be able to push the games the way they'd like. And obviously you go back to a Cincy team that was like setting records for post 75th minute winners over the last 2 years. I think Miles Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin, and Lucho Costa all come back into the team for this one, which is really big. And I will throw this in there for Philly. If you didn't watch their game against Montreal, you are not the only one. It was a very sparsely attended game and probably viewed as well. The Sam Adeniran goal that he sets up off of Jonathan Sirois for Ty Baribo is like classic Ura to Carranza. It's Ura would go out into the left channel, work a defender, put a dangerous cross into the 6, Carranza crashing. This was Adeniran out into the left channel. He fires the shot off of Sirois from the tight angle. Baribo's there for the tap in. Like, that's really exciting stuff, I think, for Philly, because Ura clearly is struggling. Baribo has scored goals over the last month or so. And Adeniran, the one real addition they've made over the last few weeks. And I think we all feel like he has the potential to be a really big piece of that team as well. So we've got all those big games coming up tonight. Let's close out on one huge piece of news. The Chicago Fire Chief Soccer Officer George Heitz says that he will be stepping away for personal reasons at the end of the year and going back to Switzerland. Is this the most exciting moment in Chicago Fire history over the last 3 years?
We'll start with the serious. Hope everything's all right. Again, no matter how much success or failure a person, player, executive has had, Again, hopefully everything's all right. But yeah, just in terms of his working career with the Chicago Fire, not a ton of highlights to point to. You point to the sales of John Duran, Gago Sonina. That's about it, right? Like, I don't even mean that to be super critical or super mean. I just don't know what the next one would be. They traded George Mihailovic, who then was transferred for upwards of $6 million. They've, DP after DP after DP that hasn't worked out. They're still saddled with Jaron Shaqiri. Like, Hugo Kuipers looks like a good player. Is that the next one? Like, that might be it, right? Like, Calvin Nicholas, I thought that was a good signing, right? Like, clutching their straws here. Like, these are the ones that should be. It's just been a perpetual disappointment. It has not been for lack of ambition from ownership. They've spent a lot of money. They have, made changes. A lot of coaching hires have been bad decisions. Like the gas on Jimenez stuff, I can't say how many times I've made jokes or just been like, I don't understand what happened here. Not only keeping him, re-signing him, giving him contract extensions. All in all, like hope springs eternal. It has not sprung eternal in Chicago. Yeah. And just judging by the fan reaction, depends on what happens next. And I think that fans would be right to be beaten down a little bit with a lot of rainy days here that like, hey, let's just make sure that we get the next hire right. Greg Berhalter's been somebody who's been connected to the team. I had somebody from another club text me and be like, my guess is, CSO plus head coach for it. Like, if they can do that, that'd be excellent. And I think that would be room to be optimistic. And we'll see what happens. Who knows? Again, hope everything's all right. But we can't sit here and pretend like this has been anything short of a disappointment over the last 4 years.
For Chicago fans, like the part that should be hopeful or whatever is they've spent.
Yeah.
Like the ambition is there. The process is wrong. The way they assess their roster and future players and how they can add to that team has been off. But at least they are making those moves. Your hope would be, your best comparison here would be FC Cincinnati, which was Cincinnati was ambitious and poorly run. And when you took that ambition and you put it with a genuine process and MLS knowledge, it didn't take very long because you have the ambition and the willingness to get out of contracts and flip players and go out and use discretionary spending, whether it's TAM or DP signings, whatever it is. That is a little bit easier to get over than non-ambition and we're stuck in these contracts and there's nothing we can do about it. And how do we make these DPs work? And what do we do to get Shaqiri better? Like your assumption at this point would be most of those guys are not playing for this team next year. You find the pieces you like that are still there and you move on into a lot of new pieces. And so for Chicago, it could happen quickly if it's the right people. Greg Berhalter would be a dream signing for me in that double scenario. I don't know how long Josh Wolf is for the Austin job. That's a guy who's got some background with that Chicago club as well and could be in those conversations. The Chicago Fire tree is like pretty strong. They haven't really tapped into it outside of Frank Klopas over the past 15 years or whatever. And it doesn't seem very hard to go out and find someone to take one of those jobs and whatnot. All right, Tom, it was a wild weekend. Did I forget anything?
No, I don't think you have.
Good.
You could have slipped through some fake rumors to try to see if I could just go, no, or like if you ran down the list of games that happened Saturday and just snuck in one that like didn't happen. Like, oh, did you know that Montreal played Vancouver this weekend? Like, oh no, yeah, totally, I saw that, right? Like, try to catch me if I was cheating on anything, but I wasn't, and you didn't. That was nice of you.
Well, to be clear, San Jose didn't even score a goal. I made that entire game up. It was all a fever dream, and it wasn't even real. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow, live 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Jordan Angeli to break down NWSL. Me and Tom will be back Thursday to close out the transfer window and talk all things MLS. You've been watching SoccerWise. Thank you to all of you for watching live, and to anyone listening to the podcast, we'll talk to you again very, very soon.